Don't we all wish that money grew on trees? But we know it doesn't. Hello, welcome to this edition of Seminole County Extension's Solutions for Your Life. My name is Barbara Hughes. I'm the County Extension Manager for the University of Florida and Seminole County Government. Today, we will be showing you one of our free financial classes that will help you survive in these tough times. We hope you enjoy it.
Well, most of the people we know at least one person that's in foreclosure. I mean, put your hands up if you yourself or you know somebody in foreclosure. How's that easy? Most people don't know what foreclosure is. A foreclosure is basically a civil action, just like Wapner. You know, Judge Judy, somebody files a claim for something. In this case, the bank is filing a claim saying that they want this property, that you haven't paid on it, you have defaulted on the loan, and they want the property. The idea of foreclosing means that anybody after them who has rights will be foreclosed out. That's the concept of it. That's the only difference between this and suing for, let's say your friend owes you $15,000. Same concept, except at the end, they get the house instead of just a regular judgment. If you've noticed, and you've heard on the news, foreclosure is one of the largest growing civil actions in the country. And the reason for that is because as the economy gets worse, people tend not to be able to pay on their loans. In this case, we had probably about 5 to 6 years where property values kept going up and up and up, and we thought it would never end. And basically foreclosures are like an epidemic. You're dealing with people who range from doctors to minimum wage employees who are all in trouble, and it doesn't matter what their incomes are, because as you know, you buy a house a lot of times based on your income. You say, well, I can afford a third of that. What happens when your income gets cut in half? I mean, how would you deal with it? What you have here is you have a lot of people suffering. And whose fault is it? Every time you turn on the television, it's a different demographic. It's the banks, it's the people who got the loans, it was the appraisers. The problem we have right now is because of the large, massive amount of foreclosures, how do we make a comeback? How does this country make a comeback? Well, we have to stabilize the appraisers first. Now, appraisers now are forced by the government. You have to pick them at random. You can't just ask your friend Bob to go appraise your property to make it the exact amount of the loan. For those of you who got loans in the last couple of years, you know it was very strange to you that the appraisal was almost exactly what you were borrowing. You know, how do you think that happened? Do you think that was by chance? Do you think that appraisal worked every comp and just miraculously it made that extra $90,000 that you needed for that equity line? Do you think that's possible? I mean, when we were kids, we looked at mathematical formulations, 1 plus 1 equals 2. How is it dead on every time? And it was because it was supposed to be. The appraisers were handpicked by the mortgage companies, by the mortgage brokers, by the real estate companies to go out and appraise it at exactly within probably about a couple $1,000s of what you need. Now, what happens when the market falls? Your neighbor gets foreclosed on, and they take the house, and the house sells for half the value. How do you think that affects you, the neighbor? What happens when you get a loan? Do they compare that sale to your house? Absolutely. So what does that mean? It means that you're sitting on a house. Let's say you bought your house for $300,000, and now it's only $200,000. Now the appraised value is only $250,000. Now, what do you do when you can't pay on your mortgage? Stop paying. When you can't pay, it's amazing. You can't just write a check because there's no money to pay for that mortgage.
Even if you realize you don't have the money to pay, there are a few things you can do to be proactive. Don't ignore the problem. The longer you wait, the more difficult it may be to save your home. Contact your lender as soon as you realize you have a problem. They may have options to help you. Open and respond to all mail from your lender. Notices may offer information about foreclosure prevention or include important notice of pending legal action.
When you get that, let's say you're in default. Default means you haven't paid. And the bank sends you a letter and says you haven't paid. And then what they do is they hire a law firm. Now what they do is they file what they call a lis pendens. A lis pendens is a fancy word for you owe me money and you have 20 days to deny that you owe me money or deny that you have rights to fight this action. Now some people get it in the mail. Normally what happens is you get a knock at the door and there's some guy you don't know with paperwork and he hands it to you. And he says, hey, what's your Bob Smith? Bob Smith, welcome to your foreclosure. And he walks away. And normally it says 20 to 30 days. You have to answer this. Do you think just because you owe the money that you shouldn't file an answer? That's an interesting concept. Most people don't. Most people I talked with said, well, I didn't file an answer because I didn't pay. I didn't know. Problem with that is